massive social intervention, which is a combination of the training programs, the work programs, the social workers programs, the housing situation, and all these things, the culmination of all these things have to be rolled together to make an impact that will create a difference. Because we claim that social decay in communities help to breed violence. Whoever did a survey for that, I would submit that that is partially true. Maybe it is true in the most part. So we need to attack that. What we don't need is, we don't need more boots on the ground from security forces. What we need is for those boots to be there to help the community to build, not to drive around in lorries and tanks with a heap of big gun and profile. That's not solving the problem. Those guys need to be out there with their efforts, working with the people within the communities to solve this thing. Not a hard hand, hard fist business coming out of the state of emergency. And that is why I'm submitting again that you consider, even we're supporting this measure now, but you consider very seriously how to extend the ZOZOs into different areas of St. James that are easily identifiable. Your Minister of National Security know them like the back of a man. He know every gang in St. James. I don't know that him know the members, but I know him know every gang in St. James. Because his constituency have the most gang down there. You said so, that the most gangs are down there in St. James. And he said in his speech a couple months ago that the most of them are in his constituency. So, Prime Minister, I'm just, as I say, I'm like a voice crying in the wilderness. But I hope, if nobody else don't hear me, I hope that you hear me and give me some response. Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many of the points have been repeated by the speakers, and I thank them for the contribution to the debate on the resolution. And where points have been repeated, I note them for emphasis. What I believe is being emphasized is what are the strong points of evidence to be considered by members of the House in making the decision to exercise their constitutional right to approve the extension. Well, you have a right, and if you choose to use it, you use it by duty. You may feel that you have a duty not to, but you still have the right. So, Mr. Speaker, the first point to consider is whether or not there is a threat to the right to life in certain areas of Jamaica. Well, the Constitution provides a benchmark. Is it on an extensive scale? And if I could get the slide of the murders per 100,000 for 2017, just to make the point, particularly to the member from Central Manchester. When the security forces, and the member from Central Manchester would appreciate this, that when they go to give advice to the government, it is not on a frivolous frolic, that they do serious consideration of the intelligence that they have, of the evidence that is before them, and of certain knowledge of actions that have been taken or about to be taken. And they make a recommendation. And they do that, and as Prime Minister, having worked with 3 commissioners of police and 2 chiefs of defense staff, I have the highest level of respect for their judgment. And I would never believe that they would in any way make a recommendation that is not in the interest of the people of Jamaica. So what is put forward to us, obviously, some of it will be distilled, because for security reasons, and again as a member from Central Manchester would know, and the leader of the opposition would know, and the current Minister of National Security would know, that you don't give details of all the evidence that you have and all intelligence that you have, because you may reveal sources and methods as to how you come by them. But the intelligence apparatus of the state, along with your analysts, along with the heads of your various divisions and the heads of the security forces, put all information together and they advise the government. In this case, we have structured that system of advice and decision making in the National Security Council, where that goes through a very robust process of interrogation of what is presented. So yes, I trust the advice of the heads of the security agencies, but we put that through robust interrogation. The cabinet looks at it, and then we make decisions to recommend to the Governor General. Now, Mr. Speaker, what was put before us that led us to accept the recommendation to pass on the recommendation for the proclamation of a state of public emergency? Mr. Speaker, there are 56 active gangs operating in the Tri-Parish region, meaning St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland. 56 active gangs. The current feud over turf, let me just say that again, the current feud over turf control involves approximately 17 gangs. So there are 17 gangs at war with each other over turf in that region, largely concentrated between St. James and Westmoreland. Most of it concentrated in the member from Western Westmoreland's constituency. The rivalry is played out with killings, reprisals, and counter-reprisals, and it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But there is another situation which the member from Eastern Westmoreland, the member from Southern St. James would be aware of, that there are some rural communities that have been captured. In other words, put it this way, there are areas of Jamaica where the state was not sovereign. There are areas of Jamaica where the state was not sovereign. It pains my heart to say it, but the member from South St. James and the member from Eastern Westmoreland, who isn't here, would also say that. What's it, Minister Retreat and the other area? Retreat, Cambridge. Those areas in 2017 and the early part of 2018 were areas that were literally captured.
Sovereign.
Literally captured. It is the, hold on, please. It is the implementation of the SOE that gave us.
You shut your mouth and listen to the Prime Minister. You're out of order. Shut up.
Order, please. Members, when somebody is addressing the Parliament, if you wish to disrupt, do so according to the standing orders. Prime Minister, please proceed. Order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I promise I won't be long. I just to run through the points very quickly.
Please.
So, you have the gang situation that you have to contemplate, and you have the situation where there are areas that have been captured. Now, they've been captured by gangs, but particularly for the Cambridge section, it's a gang, but you had two notorious figures who drove fear, not just into the citizens, but also into the security forces. I don't want to go too far in it, but the reports, I stand here making these decisions not because it's just, I pick things out of the air. I have been appealed to by members on that side and members on this side who express the fear, and when they're expressing it, it's palpable. So we have real situations. I'm not trying to take away from the legal points raised by the member from Central Manchester. So you put those together, but then there's a third element that you have to put together. The widespread nature of access to weapons. So even if you're not dealing with a gang situation, weapons are widely available and used. So you have three situations that drive this level of above normal crime in Jamaica. The three elements, as I've said before. It is the Don, it is the gang, and it is the gun. So if you want to deal with crime in Jamaica, you have to treat with the gang, the leader, the mastermind, the one who pretends to be the Messiah, the Savior, the Robin Hood, and he stands apart from the gang, or she. Then you have to deal with the gang, which is slightly different, because the gang is as much as a social construct as it is an economic entity. It is a way of life that they choose, they are recruited into it. And then you have the instrument, which has a particular fetish attached to it, the gun. People just want it because they have a love for it. Those three things are what is driving the abnormal levels of crime in Jamaica. Now, put with that, so you have these three elements working, and we can measure them. Are they so extensive as to pose a threat to life? The answer to that, if you look at 2017, is that on the wider Jamaica, the answer is obviously no. So if you look at the wider Jamaica in 2017, and you look at the parish of Portland and St. Thomas, you look at St. Elizabeth and Manchester, you see that there are areas in Jamaica where the extensiveness of the threat would never support a state of public emergency. Those are within what could be considered within the powers of normal policing. There is no emergency. There is no situation that is upon you, that is over and above your capacity to address. Regular policing can deal with the situation in Trelawney, in St. Anne, in St. Mary, in Portland, in St. Thomas, even in St. Catherine. I still submit then that we were in a difficult position in Clarendon, but if you look at Clarendon, you will see where the concentration is, and even then you wouldn't take the entire parish. You could deal with areas of it. Clearly, Manchester and St. Elizabeth. That's within normal. So we have never called a state of public emergency that was not of an extensive a scale as to threaten the right to life. Where we have called it relative to the community. Relative to the community that is at threat. So if you've looked at St. James at 183, you have a greater chance of being murdered in St. James than being hit by a car. In 2017. You have a greater chance of being murdered in St. James than dying from heart disease, diabetes. So if you are saying to me that this does not rise to the level where the state must not act with speed, alacrity, that the state must not act to preserve life, then, members, I would have to ask, then what is the role of government? If this is not justifiable, Mr. Speaker, I make another point. There is no amount, and the member is raising a point, sort of, but still a point to be brought into the discussion. I recognize that everybody wants to go home now. But Mr. Speaker, forgive me for being distracted. But the member is saying that instead of a state